Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Mind-Boggling Concepts in the Torah. As per usual, put down these sharp objects and don't get too close to the microphone. We don't want to spread any of those dangerous diseases. We are now on our journey, line through the Torah. Last week we did the first verse, Pasuk 1, and now we're racing ahead, lightning speed, to verse 2. Although we're going to revert back, I think, a little bit, but nevertheless, we'll give it a shot. So verse 2 is, "V'ha'aretz hayat tohu v'chu." The earth was void, is a very hard expression to translate, but was chaotic. V'hashek al pnei tehom, and there was darkness in the face of the deep. Ruach Elokim, and the Spirit of God hovered on the face of the water. And Hirsch makes this point, which I think is a fascinating point, is the Torah did he doesn't say it this way, but did a switch, what do they call in the gangster business, a switcheroo, right? A bait and switch.
Mm-hmm. With what?
Because the second verse should have started off with Hashemayim. The first verse says, Gracious Barakim, et Shemayim, that God created the heavens and the earth. Right? So the second verse should have now explained what is the Shemayim. What is the Shemayim? What is heaven? But it doesn't. In fact, it doesn't refer to it only by inference, by loose connection. Does it refer to it again? It does. It's a subject that's not brought up again, even though we're gonna talk about Shemayim heaven in the 6 days, but that's a different heaven, as we will uncover. But the real heaven that was created on day one, Bereshis bara Elokim et Shemayim v'et haaretz, in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. That is off the table. God's not going to discuss it, and Hirsch makes this a very, very powerful point, that's the meaning of Judaism, and that's the meaning of the Torah, is that the Torah is about this world, how to live a great life in this world. If you read my book, I don't have a couple. It's all the way over there. I can't be bothered to get up. Sorry.
At least you're honest.
Yeah, at least I'm honest. Thank you. So there are my books that talk about that the biggest degrade, what's the word?
No, that's right. Degradation.
What?
I think you were looking for degradation, right?
Degradation, downgrade, and the quality of life is birth. Right? You go from this incredibly perfect existence where you're sitting in this goo, you don't even have to chew your food. You don't even have to open your mouth. And everything's taken care of you. You're warm, you're cozy, you're safe, you're well nourished. You have no worry in the world. Right? What's wrong with this scenario? Tell me, I'm good, you're good, right? We're all good. What are we? What is it? How does it? It can't get any better than that. Right? Is the single downgrade in the quality of life that a person will ever experience. Nothing that can ever go wrong. Right? As tragic as it was, right? The hostages, as tragic was, it's not as bad as that. From where they were to where they went, right? It's not as bad as being born. Being born is the single biggest downgrade in the quality of life any human being is ever going to experience. And unfortunately, it's downhill from then on. It just doesn't get any better, right? And that's what mommy and daddy are tirelessly, that's why you're frantic. That's the gray hairs. That's what it's all about, right? The wrinkles is because the baby is like, what is going on here, right? Like, I was fine, and you guys just woke me up, right? What and it's just a constant trying to recreate for the baby an experience as best as you can to the womb, and it's what's the word? it's not pointless. It's just impossible. You can't do it. You're never gonna.
I'm not following this. You know why? Because you're not in the womb fully made for a long time. You're in the womb growing. You're going from, you know, a single combined cell and being, you know, like divided. And then there's differentiation. Okay, these are the heart cells, these are the kidney cells, these are the skin cells, yada yada. And then you have something that looks like a weird creature. And then eventually, you know, you see the hands and the legs. I mean, it's not a what, like, I don't know what you're talking about. It doesn't sound like such an easy existence. I mean, you're talking about unbelievable change occurring in a very short time.
That's true. But the last week or two, maybe the last month, depending on the baby, it's just sheer bliss. It's
okay,
just,
maybe I would grant you that, but that's about it.
okay, fine.
And then you just repeat that when you come out. So what do? Now you're growing in a different way, but it's
No.
still growth.
No, you're growing in it's nothing compares to it. You can't get, all our efforts are to get back to that experience
Of being in the womb.
Being in the womb, a comfy chair, smart thermostat, food, everything is all about not having to go into the woods to chop wood, the forest to chop wood, right? Everything's to try and go back as best as we can to that, to like we just sit in a pool in a nice hot bath and just have not a worry in the world. Right? All the bills.
Because you're looking. Sorry, I think it's because you're looking at it from a physical perspective. Because you're not talking about what happens from a spiritual perspective, right? Like from a spiritual perspective, you're being told about your whole life and you're told secrets, etc., etc. Like that's some fantastic things that you're being told.
That's
so
right.
like I get what you're trying to say, but it doesn't feel like comprehensive. Like it seems like you're just taking a little slice of the and like focusing on that. And I get it. I get why you're doing that, because a lot of people just view life that way. Like they're just looking for physical comfort. They're just looking to go back to the womb. But really, they're just looking for the physical back to the womb, not the spiritual back to the womb. If they were looking to go back to the womb, then they should do both. They shouldn't just be looking for the comfortable physical. They should be looking for the spiritual too.
I think you should read my book.
I think I have read it.
This is an in-joke for all the people watching this video. Zita has read the book probably more than anyone outside of me. So it's a bit of an in-joke here. But no, you see, every human being, the most spiritual, deep, ruchniest people on the planet are trying to get back to the womb.
Okay. Give me an example, because I'm having a very, very difficult time with this idea that you're presenting.
Good. That's what makes it fun. So, so you see, you leave the womb, right? Now, unless you're like the Vilna Gaon, the Chafetz Chaim, the Chazon Ish, Rav Yehuda Nasi, Moshe, Avraham, you left the womb, right, like everybody else, and it's a big disappointment. Life's a big disappointment, right? In varying degrees of comprehension, you realize this is not fun, right? Every baby goes through that slow. They can't necessarily articulate it, but they're not happy with what's going on. That's why they're crying, because like, excuse me, where's the room service?
See, I'm still not, maybe it's because I'm a mommy, I'm still not with you on this, because after they're born and they're placed on mommy, it's still warm, it's still cuddly. Granted, there's no goo, I agree with you.
That's
but
true.
when they start drinking, it tastes, it like they actually have taste now, you know, like before they were just drinking amniotic fluid, and I'm sure that does not taste very good. But like breast milk, I'm sorry to tell you, it is delicious. And that's why I'm sorry to tell you, is because I know. It is delicious, okay? You cannot ask for a better situation than being held by your mommy and being fed and cared for.
That's true. You see, there are moments of respite, There are moments in the baby's experience that sort of like calms them down, like the one you're expressing. But they're moments. Now, for a newborn baby, those moments are quite extensive. So it can be a place of peace or tranquility for quite some time, but they're broken up by intervals of discomfort, like when they're dirty, when they're hungry, etc., etc., when they're tired, right? Before they get uncomfortable. Those are brief moments, and then mommy and daddy are trying to bring them back to the womb. Right? That's what we're
trying to bring them back to comfort, you're saying.
To comfort, right? As the child gets older and older, they start to realize, or they don't realize, I should say, that they experience longer periods of discomfort, and the parents are constantly trying to recreate the womb. And if you get to like the age of 35 and you still haven't figured it out, you're an emotional wreck. And therefore you're doing transplants and all kinds of other crazy stuff, because that's what will get us back to the womb. That will get us back to this feeling of comfort, and we'll love each other and everything's wonderful. And they're just constantly, like they're frantically trying to get back to that experience, because that's our home base. That's the ground zero. That's our reference point in life.
Let me see if I understand what you're saying. Okay. I want to be sure that I'm on the same page, because otherwise everything you say after this will not make sense to me. So in essence, you're saying that state of being in the womb where everything's being taken care of, where you're sort of loved unconditionally in the sense that like everything's being done for you, is the state that we're always trying to get back to?
Exactly.
The state where you want everything to be taken care of for you.
Right.
Okay,
now you got that.
I got what you're saying, but I don't know if I agree with it.
Right. I understand. Hang on a minute. I think you will in a minute. Give me a few minutes.
Okay.
So what parents do, and the child does as well, is do everything they possibly can, and they're frantic. They're grasping at straws. It's in the world. The history of the world is just this effort of trying to get back to the womb, right? What the Torah brings to the table is you're always in the womb,
because you're connecting to God.
Because you're connecting to God. God's taking care of you. There's nothing to worry about.
You see, this goes back to my other comment about like the nursing baby. Like it reminds me of what Moshe would keep saying every time he felt overwhelmed. He would say, "Am I a nursemaid?" Right? Like that's the very analogy he used. Why? Because that's when you feel that what you're trying to describe, that feeling of being held and loved and cared for, and it's warm and cozy and etc. I don't think the womb is that.
Is what?
That description of like the warm, the cozy, the connected, the being taken care of. It's, to me, the womb seems more like the example of what you talk about with the ravens, how like, you know, there's food right there, but there's nobody actually like physically giving to them, right? So everything appears. In essence, that's what a fetus is in the womb, right? Like they're not aware of where they're getting all this nutrition and life and goo and everything. They're not aware at all. They know nothing, but somehow they exist and they're living, etc. So it's very similar to the raven. So I don't know why you would be wanting to go back to the womb when it's so incompatible with the Torah. Like that doesn't sound like the Torah.
I'm not understanding you.
Okay, so let me see if I make it a little bit clearer. What did you just say about the Torah? You said the Torah is the feeling that you get when you're back in the womb?
No, Devekis is the feeling you get when you get back to the womb.
Okay. Devekis is the feeling you get when you go back to the womb?
That's the feeling of being back in the womb, yes. Okay,
so then your premise is that being in the womb, you feel a feeling of Devekis.
I can't speak to that. I don't know. but you feel that feeling you have from the womb is overwhelming. It's implanted in our consciousness. It's part of our very existence. It's the foundation of where we start.
Okay. My theory is a little bit off on this one. I feel like where you start is at the point where you're as soon as you come out and you're placed on your mommy, I think that's when it starts. And then like when the baby's nursing, that's when your concept and whatever of Devakis appears. And anybody who doesn't have that, people that don't have that, ends up being probably psychopaths, right? Like because they have no emotional connections, they have no issues like being cruel to human beings because they never developed the necessary Devakis as a child, as a baby, not a child, as a baby with their mother.
Well, so the deprivation creates all kinds of dysfunction. That's true. But you're right. It starts the moment the baby comes out. What starts is recreating the experience of the womb. That's what starts. What a person should do, what the Torah gives us, is that the only way to fill that gap is through Devakis.
Devakis to God,
Hashem.
Torah?
Right, to Hashem.
Devakis to Hashem. So, but you have to be aware of that relationship. Are you aware of that relationship in the womb?
I don't know. But you're aware that you're missing it outside the womb. So
I guess maybe you are aware in the womb because you're learning all of Torah in the womb.
Right. So it could be you are, but you're definitely aware that you're missing it outside the womb and you're trying to recreate that experience. In other words, if we never had the womb, if evolution were true, we just evolved into pitiful life forms, then whatever plus in life we have, whatever advantage in life, we'll be exceedingly grateful. So it's like you take a wild animal and you put it in, you take care of it. It's grateful for whatever degree of gratitude it can have, but nevertheless, it experiences a higher level of existence than being in the wild, and it's happy for that to whatever degree it can be happy because its baseline is misery. So a brutal existence, it's a brutal existence. So being taken care of is phenomenal for it. Human beings' baseline is not that. Human beings' baseline is the womb. So we miss.
Can I ask you about that? Because wasn't it true that like Chava barely had a pregnancy? Like she basically gave birth like immediately after or something like that?
Yes, right.
So
that doesn't contradict this, right? It's just the experience of giving birth was just different. But it still had to go through being in a womb. Cain and Abel still had to go through being in a womb. Right? That process is necessary. So everybody wakes up from the womb knowing something's missing in their lives. We're not happy no matter how good life is. In other words, if you on the scale of history, we are living the life that most people could not dream of existing. You know, my G app, you know the G app, right? You know the G app?
Yeah.
No, you know, it's an app I want to create on the phone, right? So it's an icon on your phone, right? It's called G app, right? I think we should develop it. I think it'll be a big hit. So what it is you press it, right? And you speak to your great grandmother. I mean, who wouldn't want to talk to her? Right? Now, here she is. She's sitting in some little village in the middle of the Atlas Mountains, you know, maybe 150 people in the whole town, right? And she says to you, Bubala, what's going on? And you say, oh, great. We'll call her grandma for short, you know, because Can't keep saying great, 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 great. Right? Grandma for short. So she says, what's going on? She says, Grandma, let me tell you about my life. You know, I really shouldn't complain, but I've got to tell you the honest truth. Right? The idiot architect, I don't know what he was thinking. I mean, he put the thermostat near the front door. I mean, have you ever heard of such a thing? Oh, I mean, here I am. I'm watching an old rerun of Seinfeld in the den. And my husband, he likes it at 71. And I like it at 72. Right? So here I am freezing. And I've got to schlep all the way to the front door. It's so annoying. I tell him, he doesn't listen. And I've got to change it to 72. And Grandma says, 72 what? I like 3 logs, and Grandpa Sam, he likes 2 logs. And when we run out of logs, he has to go out into the forest and chop down another tree. Oh, I know, Grandma. Hang on a minute, though. I just need to take a Tylenol. What's the Tylenol? A Tylenol. Oh, it's amazing. You have a headache. You take a Tylenol. About 5-10 minutes later, the headache's gone. She says, you take a pill, and the headache's gone in 5 minutes. I've had a headache since March. Oh, I know, man. Then you hear beep, 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 beep. What's the beep, beep, beep? Oh, it says, oh, the kids will be home soon. And I picked up dinner at the supermarket, and I need about 15 minutes. Just put it in the microwave, and it'll be ready. She says, you make dinner in 15 minutes? I've been making dinner since yesterday. So she says, I know. Oh, Grandma, I got to take this call. It's coming in on the other line. It's my brother. He's in Australia flying in an airplane 10,000 feet above the ground, 500 miles an hour. And he's calling to let me know if he's coming for the holidays. You're speaking to your brother in Australia? I have a sister that lives 7 miles away. I haven't seen in 5 years because there's no roads. Right? Finally, she says, Grandpa, she says, Bubba, if I had your life, I would never, ever, ever complain. If you want to describe your life to anybody, right? Anybody, 100 years ago, J.P. Morgan was one of the richest people in the world. 100 years ago, his first wife died of TB. Have you ever heard of anyone? The richest man in the world couldn't afford the health care that you and I take for granted. If you were to get on the phone with anyone prior to 100 years ago and describe your life, they would think you're talking to them from heaven. You must have died and gone to heaven. This is what heaven must live. No, you don't understand. We got a president. I don't like him. Okay. Wait, is he rampaging through the street with Cossacks, chopping little kids up into pieces? No, God forbid. My internet doesn't work. What do you mean internet? If you ask any philosopher, not Jewish philosopher, prior to 100 years ago, what would have to happen for humanity to have nirvana, to live in total wonderful peace and happiness? They would say 5 things, right? This one is in the book, right? No war, no disease, like get rid of the plague, not this, COVID nonsense, right? Like the real plague, like cholera, like cholera used to shut down London on a regular basis. The whole city, you couldn't go there. Right? The Black Plague would wipe out 40% of a whole country. 40%. Right? Because the whole villages just disappear. Right? And rich and poor alike. There's no defense against it. Right? It was a common thing. Every couple of years, the Black Plague would come round. Right? Heating. Right? They wouldn't have mentioned indoor plumbing because they wouldn't have imagined it. Right? Up until the 1800s, London did not have a sewer system. Right? Everyone dumped their sewage, into the Thames. The Thames became just this big sludge. It was the 1800s. It's not long ago. Mind-boggling. Right? You understand? So we live in a life that you can't imagine. How did we get onto this point?
Because we're focusing on the physical of going back to the womb.
So we're trying to, so we live at the end of time because we've now achieved everything possible that you can possibly do to get an existence as close as you can to the womb. And it's not making anyone happy because they're missing that little piece.
So you're saying that Esav achieved his goal of whatevering nature and the physical world to bring it to a certain state, and Yaakov needs to catch up and finish up.
That's exactly, you nailed it. Exactly. That's exactly what's supposed to happen. That's why Adam had Cain and Abel. And when Abel died, because Cain was the farmer, and Abel was the shepherd. The shepherd's the philosopher. Right? Esav was the same thing. Esav was meant to be the industrialist. Right, Rome, the Western world, all technology comes out of the West. Right, it's only when countries become westernized that they become technological superpowers. China, Japan, these are incredible countries, right? Smart people, but nothing comes out of them until they become westernized. They think like Esav. Right?
Oh, is that why Smotrich made such a not nice comment about Saudi Arabia and the camels?
So they didn't catch that. Sorry.
Finance Minister Smotrich made a comment about Saudi Arabia and how they can be on their camels or some such thing, because he was very offended by the position of Saudi Arabia.
Oh, really? No, I missed that one.
I'll have to send it to you.
Send it to me, please. Yes. All right.
Now I get why he specifically used that insult, but based on what you're saying.
Right. That was the dream, that you'd have Cain would be the physical world and Abel would be the spiritual world. You need both. Esav would be the physical world. Yaakov is the spiritual world. Right. So Esav is busy trying to recreate the room, because that's the place where we are peace and happiness and joy and love and everything's good. Right. What they don't realize is that without the spiritual world, it means very little. Like we're all trying to get back to that experience. We all know something is wrong because our reference point is the womb. That's our reference point. Whether we articulate it or not, that's where we're trying. That's where we feel that life is off, but it can't be fixed by the physical. That's the mistake Esav makes. Now, up until the end of history, we are now living in the end of history. Up until the end of history, there were things you could do or could imagine that we need to do to create this nirvana. There was disease, there were constant wars, there was incredible poverty, abject poverty. But now we've achieved all of those things. The things that we're complaining about now, we want to fix now, are very small issues on the scale of existence. Most people do not have to worry about the things that we're trying to solve, right? Cars that never need filling up, and all the other internet and all the other things that we're talking about are not the major issues of existence like it used to be. We're at the end of end of history. There's nothing left to invent that's going to change our lives. So now this is where Yaakov comes in, and Yaakov says, "Listen, this is the gap. This is why anti-Semitism is rising so sharply, because they realize this message, and they hate it."
I wonder, could we go back a little bit? I'm sorry to belabor this point, but I don't know, it just doesn't fit 100%. It seems to me the womb is more like Gan Eden / Olam Haba, and that after the baby is born and has that connection with a mother, that seems like what we were trying to get to here. Like in this world, we're trying to get that connection with a loving source, being God.
Exactly.
That's what it seems more like to me.
That's exactly right. The connection the baby has to the mother placates it, because it's that moment is similar to the womb. But as the baby gets older, that he needs a deeper connection, a deeper meaning, as we all do.
Again, it seems very much to me that given that, like, in the womb, the baby basically is like part of the mother. So in the same sense, isn't it true that we're sort of like part of God? I mean, the way it's described by Rabbi Kassin about what it's going to be like in Olam Haba is that we're just going to enjoy existence, right? Like, we're not going to do anything. We're not like it sounds more like the womb to me than anything else, because like you're within God. I don't know how what the right way to describe it is, but
Yes, that's
it
true.
doesn't fit in any other way from my perspective.
Right. But we're trying to recreate or get to that experience in this world. That's our job.
Okay, I think now I understand what you're saying. You're saying that we're trying to get back to that point where we were with God on a spiritual place, where like we didn't want to leave God's presence.
Right.
And the womb is a analogy of that
That's right.
on
It's
a physical
interesting.
space, on a physical plane.
That's right. When you have that connection to God in this world, the physical doesn't matter anymore. That is one of the hostages said. I sent the video out. Fascinating. He said he was in this tunnel, 150 feet underground, total darkness. Couldn't even see shadows. Couldn't tell it was day or night. But he saw. He experienced the light of God, and it was the most serene experience. These are not his words, but this is the way he talked about it. It was the most serene experience of his life. And he misses it. He misses that moment, those moments that he had.
But that again goes back to more of, being in the cradle of mommy's arms.
Exactly.
Because we don't know what it's like to be with God. We have no conception of that.
No, we do. We do. That's the womb. That's going back to when we was, I don't know what point we had that experience, but that's what we're all going for. And we noticing as we're getting older, from the baby onwards, that it's not fitting in. It's not filling the gap. So the baby, when it's 3 weeks old, the mother does the trick. But as the baby gets older, its ruchnius needs, its physical needs become stronger. And so therefore it notices the gap, the lack, this lack of serenity. And it thinks it can fill it in with physical, but it can't. It needs to be fit in with spiritual. So when the baby is hungry, it's not just the food that it's getting, it's being close to its mother. So it's the physical with the spiritual. But as the baby gets older, the physical becomes greater, and the spiritual, just being the mother, is not going to cover it. It needs to be something deeper. So by the time we get to our stage in life, the gap is enormous.
Right. So really, if a person does not have a healthy, appropriate, loving, caring, unconditional, etc. connection at birth and thereafter, like at least for a couple of months, then really they're very much at a huge disadvantage growing up, because then they don't have that foundation. They don't have the yisod, right? I mean, now I understand why I was so disturbed by something I once saw at a pizzeria. I was so disturbed and I couldn't figure out why I was disturbed, and I couldn't stop being disturbed.
What was it?
So there was a couple, and I just want to be clear that I'm not judging. Chas v'shalom. There was a couple, they were there to eat, and I believe they had 2 children, and one of them was little and too little to actually hold a bottle and drink. And so the parents, each would take their turns, would like do some weird contraption with a towel so that the baby bottle would be held in place so that the baby could drink from the bottle. And I can't tell you how much pain and how disturbed I was seeing that.
Right. So what disturbed you?
Well, now that we're having this conversation, the disturbing part about it is, like, when it comes to nutrition, right? Like, the way God made it is that it comes from a mommy that has a connection to you, that loves you. It comes in a delicious, warm, perfectly controlled temperature. And this is only something that mommies would know, but like, very much so, children, like, they touch the mother, and they like sort of feel very soothed by touching the mother in certain ways. And like, that's how they develop the connection. I mean, oftentimes, again, you guys don't know, but oftentimes you're like looking down at your child as they're nursing. So you're looking at them eye to eye, and you're like touching their soul that way. You're sending in love through your eyes as well as your body. So, taking that away from a kid and giving them a bottle and like not even physically like holding them while you're doing it was so
Yeah.
disturbing.
100%.
And that's why we have so many problems these days, because women are so overwhelmed and unsupported and have some really weird ideas, and their most important role of being a nurturer is like diminished, and every horrible word that you can think of.
100%.
And then you wonder, well, why is society so problematic?
Right, 100%. But I would add one caveat to this.
Okay.
It's not that the world is divided between people who have healthy, nurturing, loving parents and the rest of the world. We're all born into dysfunction.
I agree with you, but the question is, how bad?
That's true. It's just a question of degree. But we all are missing what we needed at birth, and or through the growth of through our experience as childhood. So we're all missing it. So we've all got to recreate what we're missing. We're all challenged to do that.
Some of us are more challenged, don't you think? I mean, someone who is brought up in that scenario is going to have a heck of a lot of troubles, and you're not even guaranteed that that person will ever find the path that will bring them back. Whereas someone who, at least had a somewhat healthy whatever, there's a possibility that they'll do some self-reflection and etc. etc.
I'll tell you, it is true that some people have a harder time than others, but it's not true that that's not that's a bad scenario. And I'll tell you an interesting thing from the history of Yunuka. I think I sent it out to everybody. I don't know if you got it.
Yes.
So he talks there very meaningfully about the pain he had through childbirth, through his childhood, I should say, right? His father wasn't there, all kinds of difficult things that he went through. His father had to leave, whatever, right? And it reminded me of Moshe, the same kind of thing. He also had to go through this abandonment.
Yes, but remember what he had. He had at least 2 years with a loving mother who unconditionally gave to him. He didn't get complete abandonment. The same thing with Shmuel Hanavi, right? Like they both became great men, but they had that basic foundation. If they didn't, they couldn't have done it.
That's true, but you see, we've all got what we need, and we've all got what we're missing, because we need that missing to find the greatness, as Yunuka needed it, because otherwise he wouldn't. He's searching for that space. We're all missing something, so we're searching. And the greatest example is probably Abraham, who was the midrash. There's a midrash that says that he was cast out at birth, left in the desert.
He was left in the desert? I thought he was in a cave and his mother would come and take care of him.
His mother would come in now and again, but he was basically abandoned. So it's the complete, it's our lack in our lives that creates the search.
For sure, that's assuming that you're willing to go on it. I mean, it's lech lecha.
You don't have a choice. Nobody is not searching. They're all searching. They're just filling it with junk. You're going to fill it with fast food, or you're going to fill it with meaning. You're going to fill it with watching TikTok videos. You're going to fill it with learning. It's just a question of what you're going to fill it with. But everybody's searching. So
It's just you're saying it's a question of what they choose, and not making a choice is just as bad because you are making a choice by not making a choice.
you are right. You can't not make a choice. But I think that the revival that we're seeing in Israel is exactly a response to the abandonment of the secular Israeli children in even in the secular world because of their fast-moving parents, and they're finding they're finding God because they've been searching for such a long time.
I have to think about that. That's interesting what you're saying.
That's good. That's what I get paid for. All right, that's the second verse.
Wow.
Thanks, guys. Have a
Thank
great
you,
week.
Rabbi.
Shalom.
Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
shalom. Thank you.